In this Masters programme section of my website, what I've done is to put the accounts of practitioner researchers who have all been interested in improving their practice and also generating their own living theories about the process of improving their practice. And when I say their living theories, what I'm meaning is that they've explained their educational influences in their own learning and in the learning of others, often their pupils. And some of them have actually engaged with the learning of the social formations in which they are living and working. The significance of this particular section of the website is that it is fulfilling one of my central purposes of coming into higher education in 1973, when I was determined to try to help to reconstruct what counted as educational theory in the academy. Around 1973, if you studied educational theory in the UK, you would be influenced by what was known as the disciplines approach to educational theory. In this approach, educational theory was believed to be constituted by the philosophy, psychology, sociology and history of education. And I studied this particular view of educational theory at the Institute of Education between 1968 and 70. And then in my Masters in the Psychology of Education between 1970 and 72. At the same time, I was teaching full-time in comprehensive schools in London's East End. And after about 3 years, I began to question that view of educational theory because it seemed to eliminate the practical principles that I used as I tried to explain my educational influence in my own learning and the learning of my students. And when I say it removed me, or my I, from the educational theory, what I'm meaning is that it was a fundamental assumption of the disciplines approach that the practical principles that I used as an individual teacher to explain what I was doing and the influence I was having was viewed within the disciplines approach as at best a pragmatic maxim that had only a crude and superficial justification in practice, that in any rationally developed theory would be replaced by principles from the disciplines of education. Now, is this assumption which I questioned in my research programme into educational theory, largely at the University of Bath until 2009. And I've been working with largely teachers, but people from the health service and the police and sometimes from industry, to see what emerged from the explanations that individuals created for their attempts to improve their own practice and to make contributions to knowledge. Now, I don't want to be misunderstood in thinking that I am rejecting the insights from the philosophy, the psychology, sociology, history, or indeed theories of management and leadership and administration and the economics of education. I'm certainly not dismissing insights from those theories in the creation of one's own living educational theory. In fact, I don't think you could produce a valid educational theory, a living educational theory, without drawing insights from them or those theories. But what I am rejecting is the discipline's approach to educational theory that removes the practical principles of the individual and tries to replace them by principles from the disciplines of education. I do hope that that is clear. Now, in this particular section, you will see many units and also some master's dissertations that have been produced by practitioner researchers who have all been interested in studying their own practice as they've tried to improve the quality of learning with their pupils or with colleagues or in the schools in which they're living and working. And as they're doing that, they're researching this process largely from their questions, how do I improve what I'm doing, using action reflection cycles of the form, well, I've got a concern because some of my values are not being lived as fully as they could be. I imagine what to do. I act on one of the plans that I've got for improving practice. And as I'm acting, I'm gathering some data to make a judgment on the effectiveness of my actions in relation to the values that I hold. And when I've actually acted and gathered data, I evaluate my actions in relation to my values and produce an account or explanation of my own learning as I'm actually working through the process of improving practice. I don't just present this account to the Academy for accreditation. I submit it to a validation group before submitting it for accreditation, in which I ask the members of the validation group to try to strengthen my account, what it would be to strengthen my account in relation to its comprehensibility, the adequacy of the evidence that I present in relation to the claims that I'm making. I ask people to see what they would do to strengthen my awareness of the normative background from within which I'm writing. And this is very important because the socio-cultural influences on our practice and our writing are often just taken for granted. And what I always try to do in the accounts and my support for the accounts of others is to try to make sure that the awareness of the cultural influences, or what is known as the normative background, on the writings are made explicit. And the fourth question that I ask, and these four questions are drawn from the work of Jürgen Habermas in a text called Communication and the Evolution of Society. The fourth question is to do with the authenticity. And according to Habermas, the authenticity can only be shown in interaction over time. So what I ask people to do when they look at accounts and to help to validate and strengthen the validity is to suggest what might happen to enhance the authenticity of the account so that people can show that they are sustaining their commitment to living the values they claim to hold as fully as possible. I do hope you enjoy reading some of these accounts and that you actually find them useful in the creation of your own. In this living theory section of my website, I focus largely on doctoral theses that have been accredited within the Academy. And when I'm talking about the Academy, I'm using that in a generic sense to mean universities throughout the world. The living theories that are accredited here, there are some masters, but they are mainly, as I say, doctoral theses that have had to satisfy the traditional criteria for the award of a doctorate. By this I mean that they've had to demonstrate that they are making original contributions to knowledge, that they've demonstrated originality of mind and critical judgment, that they contain matter worthy of publication, although it needn't be presented in the thesis in the form ready for publication. The thesis as well has also got to demonstrate an appropriate critical engagement with the ideas of others, which is appropriate for a doctoral thesis. Every one of the doctoral theses in this living theory section has fulfilled those criteria. One of the big changes that happened in 2004, certainly at the University of Bath, was that the Senate agreed that multimedia accounts could actually be presented. This was a big change in relation to text, that we could now submit multimedia theses to the Academy. And you'll see from 2004 there have been a number of these presented. And their significance, I think, is that they allow the flows of energy with values that people embody in their practice to be shared and communicated in the thesis in a much more appropriate way than you can just with text alone. And what I hope you'll do is to see the validity of what I've been claiming about multimedia narratives if you go into the multimedia section, and you'll see how people are integrating the visual data with their analysis to communicate the meanings of the expression of their embodied values that flow with a life-affirming energy. I do hope you enjoy this and make use of these in the creation.